again, welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. Paul Schrimpf, joined by Sfiligoj.
Yes.
We're not delayed 2 weeks this time.
Not this time.
We're not just talking about our favorite stories from like 2 years ago or something like that.
Wasn't that long ago, but okay.
Get some relevance. So yeah, I guess the big news, or the big thing, at least from the home front, is all the flooding that's going on. You had some things you wanted to share or talk about on that front.
Yeah, Paul, I guess flooding is pretty severe in states like Nebraska and parts of Missouri and, of course, Iowa. I know some of the numbers that I've run across so far is they're looking about $1 billion in crop losses in Nebraska and about $1.5 billion losses in Iowa. I know President Trump has declared a lot of these places disaster areas, so they should get some federal funding to help in the cleanup effort. But the one thing I did find, Paul, was it said that according to USDA rules that if grain is contaminated with things such as floodwater, it cannot be reused or salvaged. It has to be destroyed. So, I mean, there are going to be a lot of farmers in the Midwest who were hoping to be putting seed in the ground about now who are going to be wondering about the future of their businesses, I suspect.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I think the positive things I've seen out of it is just how many farmers are helping other farmers.
True.
There's lots of things on Facebook and Twitter. All the assistance of farmers reaching out to one another, trying to help get hay out to farmers where there just really isn't any available. But it's just a rough patch. There's no two ways about it.
No, and of course a lot of these farmers were keeping a lot of the grain from the prior year's harvest because they were hoping some grain prices would maybe start rising here in 2019, and of course now that looks like it's going to be a loss for them, so they won't get any money for it at all. So,
yeah, just thoughts and hopefully things can turn around here and we get some recovery. But it's going to be a rough spring for a lot of places, and then we're seeing some places where planting's virtually ready to start.
Right.
In Illinois, some places in Indiana, I think, and that are ready to go. So I don't know. It's usual Mother Nature just will take its toll.
Well, speaking of Mother Nature, I know you were just in California in a place where Mother Nature sometimes can be nasty, sometimes behaves itself, but I guess you were in San Francisco at a tech meeting. If you want to share with our viewers some of the things you heard and saw there.
I was at the World Agri-Tech Innovation Summit. For the first time, spent a couple of days there just looking at the new technologies, trying to get a sense for where things are headed. I was laughing because there were a few. I tweeted out that I was going, and there was a little shade cast on that from some of our friends out there saying, yeah, I'm out here you're actually working and making money, so you go have fun with that. But
you weren't the only one there from our industry, though. I'm sure.
No, there were plenty of folks, but it was about 1,300 people. According to their numbers. Now, of course, as trade show manager, I know trade shows, have been known to exaggerate a little bit, but there were it was a sizable crowd, and I thought it was interesting. I sat in because it was the first time I sat in a number of the presentations. I've heard the presentations are not really as good as the networking in terms of being able to meet the people and to get an understanding of the market and see what's really happening. You're talking about one-on-one meetings that are occurring throughout the meeting, but. I guess on the discouraging side, I heard the $9 billion by 2050 about 5 or 6 times in presentations. I had Mr. Zuckerberg from Wells Fargo turn around and looked at me and said, "Don't boo these guys, okay?" Like, okay, I won't do that. I'll refrain from it. But a lot of that kind of rudimentary discussion about technology and the justification for it, which was it was a little discouraging to hear some of that. But there's a lot of enthusiasm. There's really a lot of money out there, and it's good the industry is out there. Ag people are out there discussing what's going to work, what's not going to work, and so forth. Really figuring out how these things are, how to spend money as best as possible. I mean, some of it's going to be tossed at things that are not going to go anywhere. We know that. We've seen it over and over again. But I think the more we can channel these technologies and these people into things that are going to work, really finding and identifying those problem areas and where they might succeed will be good. We talked. There was talk. In fact, Alan Fetters was there, who's an independent consultant, and we were just talking about. He talked about writing a piece, and he wrote a piece kind of on the fact that there weren't a lot of farmers there, and we really need farmers into discussion. And I do think that's really important, but I also think, at some level, to have too much of the farmer engagement on the initial side the farmers might not get a whole lot out of it, because a lot of it is collaboration with existing technology companies. Certainly farmers absolutely at the end of the day have to be kept in mind, and you have to look at the whole production system in order for it to know what's going to work and what's not going to work. But sometimes you get into these nitty-gritty collaborative kinds of discussions, and you kind of get lost in it. And some of these companies need to have come prepared to discuss their technologies, having already learned about the farmer. Mm-hmm. If they haven't come with some knowledge of what's happening on a farm gate, then they're probably already in trouble from the start. You need to be solving a problem and not just throwing a technology out there and saying, "Hey, anybody like this? Anybody, any takers for this?" So I think there's some of that. There was also talk about services, okay. Farm services. Conservice is working with Rabobank now and talking about how to turn data into raw data into information that farmers can use to improve the communication they have with bankers, to understand the benefits of the technologies that they're using. I think that's terrific. I think that's a real practical application that farmers need help with. So things like that I think are really beneficial. But overall, there wasn't anything big. There wasn't any big breakthrough. I didn't see anything among the venture capital stuff that was like particularly fascinating. There were a few nuts and bolts knickknacks that might be interesting. Animal Ag had some things that I think were pretty positive. Mm-hmm. And because the cost of the whole production cycle and the care of animals being so key, and technology being able to get into that and really help, I think there's some positive stuff coming out of that. But
okay, well, I do have something to share along the lines
Sure.
of a wow technology. You didn't see it there, perhaps, but I guess we found out this week our friends at New Leader Manufacturing, now their new name from Highway Equipment, are getting together with DOT Technology to actually develop a self-driving spreader based off their G5 unit. Here's a rendering of that, a computer rendering of that they released recently. Paul, there's nothing that in the press release we got that talks about the release date for this product, but I'm hoping that maybe during the summer trade shows, during Maggie or maybe Farm Progress, perhaps at the Farm Science Review, perhaps we will actually see a demonstration of this self-driving spreader in the marketplace.
Yeah, and New Leader's been traditionally really great about releases, yes. being complete and ready to go once they're on the ground. So we'll look forward to seeing something from them that's shows how this is going to work.
Yeah. And the final thing to mention, since you were in California, of course, we also found out our friends in California in a second trial regarding glyphosate and Bayer, the jury found in favor of the plaintiff and has awarded the client that had sued for glyphosate causing some form of cancer in them, $80 million. So we'll have to see what happens there. Bayer's promised to appeal, of course, but Paul, that's 2 lawsuits down and about $160 million in damages already awarded against Bayer, and I guess there's about 11,200 more lawsuits to go. So this could get real ugly a lot sooner than later.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about that. It's just going to have to unfold, and we'll have to see where the law and the science take us.
I'm just curious to see. I think the next lawsuit, if I remember reading right, is coming up in Missouri, and I got to imagine that in what was Monsanto's home state, if you can't win in Missouri on a glyphosate trial, that it could be a really long process.
Yeah, and from an activist standpoint, it's interesting that Monsanto continues to be the name that comes out, even though
because everybody loves everybody loves to pick on that Monsanto name.
So I guess that's it for this edition of CropLife Retail Week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below.
Your feedback is important to us. We'll try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.